Welcome to This Birding Life, a podcast for birdwatchers everywhere. I'm your host, Bill Thompson III. This Birding Life comes to you from the Big Bird House at Birdwatchers Digest. We want to congratulate this fine magazine on 40 years of publishing great content for birders. Get a taste of what BWD has to offer at birdwatchersdigest.com. And we'd like to thank our sponsors. Carl Zeiss Sports Optics makes the amazing Victory SF binocular and the equally stunning Harpia spotting scope. You can join the Zeiss community of birders at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. Red Start Birding offers optics, gear, and expertise to birders and nature lovers, plus unbelievable customer service. Give Red Start Birding a try at redstartbirding.com. Finally, the American Birding Expo is your opportunity to experience the world of birding in one place, September 21 to 23, 2018 in Oaks, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. More than 120 exhibitors from all over the world will be there. Learn more at birdingexpo.com. Now let's get to our episode. This is episode 78. Is it over for the lodge at Pico Bonito? During the recent 2 weeks of Birdwatchers Digest reader rendezvous trips to Honduras, which were based at the Lodge and Spa at Pico Bonito, I received some disturbing news. Effective at the end of April, the lodge would be closing permanently. Not selling to new ownership, not closing for remodeling or due to a declaration of bankruptcy, straight up closing down. What made this news so upsetting was that Pico is such a jewel of the American tropics and thus had become a super popular destination for birding and natural history tours on an annual basis. My friend James Adams, who has worked at Pico for many, many years, posted about the lodge's demise on Facebook, and this post caused a tidal wave of sadness, upset, and even outrage among those who got the news about Pico's closing. James was gracious enough to take some time to speak with me during my last few days there at the lodge and his last few days of employment under the current ownership. Here's our impromptu interview. Okay, James Adams, we're here at Pico Bonito, which is the place where you are currently working, and you're sort of a legend in ecotourism for the stuff you've done here. Welcome to This Birding Life, James.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, James, we're on the tail end of 2 weeks of Birdwatchers Digest reader rendezvous, and we've had a fantastic time. Everybody's loved it. It's been every bit of a challenge and a thrill and eye-opening and everything. And this is a really special place. Can you tell people just in very general terms why Pico Bonito is so special?
Well, Honduras has 100 protected areas. It's got national parks, it's got rainforests and coral reefs and Mayan ruins and all these different things. But really in none of those protected areas does it have an entity like this lodge, which is basically has been basically a private, quote unquote for-profit endeavor that by default is the gateway and the primary protection to Pico Bonito National Park itself.
Mm-hmm. And why is that? Is it because where it is located vis-a-vis where the people are?
Well, it's part of our geographical location. I mean, we're right up against the national park itself, which is one of this. You wouldn't believe things like this exist today, but one of these amazingly unexplored treasure troves of biodiversity. It's part of our positioning right in front of there. We kind of, for lack of a better word, control who comes in and who goes out of at least this little part of the national park. Mm-hmm. But it's also our projected mission statement that we are successfully or have been successfully promoting the conservation of this park and this world by improving people's lives and by our projected mission and the reality that foreigners, Americans, people from Europe, England, wherever, are taking a big part in this.
Right.
And it's, one of the few places where you've been able to see ecotourism done right in the sense of bringing really international community together in one place to protect something for not only for nature, but for all of humanity.
Mm-hmm. How'd you get your start here at Pico?
Well, I had, back in the early 90s, I had always traveled a lot. I was always in love, I'm a naturalist at heart, and I always traveled a lot, whether it be for birds or for reptiles or for whatever. And I started to come to Honduras. Really, the first time I ever came here was for diving, and I came to the mainland and saw these, massive mountains and immense rainforests, and I saw some pretty good infrastructure and some really warm people, and I fell in love with the place. And I thought, you know what, I had been doing some guiding in the United States. I was kind of thinking about my own little ecotourism setup in the U.S., and I thought, well, if I'm going to bring people to a beautiful tropical place with lots of adventure and discovery, why don't I just base myself there and see if I can bring people down? So I kind of left my life behind in the U.S. and came to Honduras in, I guess it was 98 or 99, and set about living here. Set about, knowing, realizing that I needed to live here and learn as much as I could about this country, the way to move about here, the flora, the fauna, the natural history, everything, before I could even credibly set myself up as any kind of ecotourism entity. And it was one of those things where I was having a beer in a place one night and talking to the guy next to me, and he was the project manager of some people who were building a lodge up against a national park, and would I want to come up and have a look at it?
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and he said, James, I think you could help us, and I think we could help you. You know ecotourism, we know, lodges,
right.
And that was some time ago, and here I am now.
Nice.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, monitoring content about birds and ecotourism and birding in general, I don't know, you may be in the Hall of Fame for the impact of content that you've put out, especially on Facebook. Now, I guess increasingly on Instagram now. But your stuff, pictures and captions, stories, basically, has because of your content, people have beaten a path to Pico. Describe for our listeners who may or may not have been following you on Facebook or following the Lodge at Pico Bonito on Facebook. Describe a few, the kind of stuff that you post.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's bird-centric, but I am such a generalist and such a lover of anything from scorpions to underwater life, to geology, to archaeology, to bird life. I have to put everything in.
Right.
Honduras is such a rich place and so full of all that stuff. And I'm such an avid seeker of all that sort of thing that it's not too hard for me to come up with things. Now, a lot of my motivation, believe it or not, comes from the fact that I'm a bit of an introvert. In fact, I'm a whole lot of an introvert. And I guess people are introverts for different reasons. My reasons for being so are that I treasure reality and authenticity.
Yeah.
And I don't tend to see a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I want to show that and share that and celebrate that. And boy, oh boy, if there is anything that shows and shares and celebrates authenticity, it's nature.
Right.
And so I will put anything from documenting a nesting family of toucans over the course of their peak activity season, to maybe some community benefits that we're doing, training guides and attracting people to natural history and bird watching, etc., to a beautiful coral snake that I just happened to find on a trail crawling down a hole. I mean, and even if someone finds an interesting Indian artifact, I'll post that and try to tie that into the natural world, which is not that hard to do.
No. Yeah, and it's opened people's eyes. I mean, there really was no prime destination in Honduras that I could recall before Pico came on the scene, and now it's so well known, and which makes it even more kind of upsetting to people out there that the lodge is kind of in limbo right now in terms of its future. Can you give a general description of what's going on and what the what the potential loss of this place might be?
Potential loss is huge. We got the announcement that the owners had decided to close here, and obviously you get hit with a wave of concerns, and in my case, there was this whole list of things. Okay, where am I going to go for a job? What am I going to do? Am I going to be able to stay in what I love, which is basically making this world a better place for everybody? Mm-hmm. What's the impact going to be on conservation here? What's the impact going to be on the local community? What's the impact going to be on the country's image and its tourism element? Mm-hmm. And the answer is the impact on all those things is going to be extremely negative. Yeah. I'm sorry to say that. It's going to be immensely negative. And to illustrate that, I can tell you that when I started here at Pico Bonito, probably the first time I ever walked in here, the trails that go up behind this lodge were woodcutters' trails. Mm-hmm. They were hunters' trails. Mm-hmm. Many of these fairly young trees that you see around here's a lot of big stuff, but many of the fairly young trees here are regrown, regenerated, because all of the original wood of any value whatsoever had been taken out and cut. Mm-hmm. There was not a single dead tree on this property.
Right, all cut for firewood.
All cut for firewood. If you wanted to see a woodpecker, you weren't going to see it. There was no such thing as a toucan here. There was no such thing as a monkey here. Jaguars, forget about it. Mm-hmm. No one had seen a jaguar here. I don't even know how long. We set about protecting this stuff. And, not just putting up a fence and saying keep out, but, training our people, training our staff, educating the locals, educating our guests, sharing everything that was here to the extent that, can you imagine, now we have multiple pairs of toucans nesting on the property. We see in our camera traps families of jaguars. Mm-hmm. No one ever sees this, but we see a male and a female and a baby on our trails. We see ocelots, we see mountain lions, we see anteaters, we see all these we see deer. We see all these things because we have dissuaded hunting consistently for almost 2 decades. Mm-hmm. When this goes away, when I leave here this coming Friday, when the bank that owns this place, the Honduran bank that owns this place, comes in here and puts in a skeleton crew to kind of keep the cobwebs out and stop the termites, that skeleton crew is not going to care about conservation. Mm-hmm. And they are not going to project the image that we have projected, which has kept this stuff protected for so long. The rivers on either side of us are avenues for people to come up here and hunt, mm-hmm. and to get into the national park and even into our property now and hunt. And that's what's going to happen. Mm. We know that. I know that that's going to change probably within a question of weeks, mm-hmm. and maybe only 2 weeks. All that stuff is going to go away. The baby toucans that are sticking their heads out of their nests are going to wind up in cages. Mm-hmm. The trees that they live in will probably or possibly be cut down. So that's the conservation aspect of it. The community, well, a lot of people are going to stop working, obviously. We've got, almost 50 employees, and they're going to be unemployed. Hopefully they'll find something else. We've got the Artesanos and what's called the Artesanos y Guías de El Pino, which means the artists and guides of El Pino, which is a fantastic effort that, gets something like 20 or 30 or 40 kids a week together and teaches them about nature and how to paint and gets them out bird watching and learning. And we support them heavily, not just through our lodge and what we offer them, but myself, my time, my finances, and even a lot of our guests have donated a whole lot of optics and artist supplies to these people. That relationship is going to stop. Where those kids are going to go, I guess they'll find a place. Is that just going to fizzle out? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'll try to stay personally involved if I can, but it won't be easy. Tourism in Honduras, there are other places to go. There are other lodges, other little B's and B's, things like that. But as anyone listening to this knows, there's no one out there with the conservation message that we have had and the conservation commitment that we have had. So, going to be a big impact.
Is there a window of time during which another owner could come in, or any prospects like that of some sort of a bottom of the ninth savior coming to the plate?
Yeah, there is. You know, I talked with a family member of the remaining owners here that are associated with the bank that owns the place, and you know, way off the record, he asked me, James, do you like sports? And I said, not really. And he said, well, you're familiar with the phrase Hail Mary. And I said, yeah. He said, maybe, James, maybe this is the time for some kind of Hail Mary move to come in and buy the place and run it properly. You know, the owners have not directly said, the Honduran owners have not directly said to me. The remaining American ownership has said to me, James, if you can find a buyer, buy it. Find him or her or them. So they're interested. They want to sell it. Will that happen? I have no idea. I mean, I'm talking to a couple of people out there, but in the fog of this new reality here in this part of Honduras and Pico Bonito National Park in my life, it's really difficult to be dealing with buyers and know who's serious and know who's not. But there's a possibility, yeah.
Obviously, you posted on Facebook about this the other day and created quite a tidal wave of reaction from people who've been here, from people who've been dreaming about coming here, from people who, you know, just know about it. Just, you know, today's modern social media, everybody feels like they know you. They've been following you for a while. And I know that's the case for you in a big way. Such an outpouring of empathy and sadness and, you know, outrage almost. You have to think that's going to smoke something out. I mean, do you have hope?
I have hope, yeah. You know, it's a tricky. It's hard to have hope.
Right.
It's real hard to have hope, but I do. And you know, I'm taking every person who, you know, maybe I can't answer all the comments on Facebook, but you better believe if somebody emails me, if somebody calls me, if somebody sends me a message, I am treating them with every degree of seriousness and gratitude that I possibly can, and seeing where it might go. There have been so many suggestions, you know, of a GoFundMe campaign or this or that, and I'll be honest with you, Bill, I don't know how to do a GoFundMe campaign. I don't have enough time in my day to sit down at a computer and do this thing and figure it out. Might sound like a weak excuse from someone who cares so much, but I'm going to tell you, man, you only have so much room in your tank.
Yeah, oh no, believe me.
And I don't have it. You know, I mean, I can get some buyers, you know, talk to them and if it looks good, take the next step and connect them with the ownership. I don't know if it's going to work, but yeah, I have hope.
So we need $4 million.
That's it.
More or less. Más o menos.
Más o menos, yeah. $4 million. You know, one of the things here, and every potential buyer asks me this, is, you know, is Pico Bonito profitable?
Right.
Is it a viable business?
Right. And
the answer is, bluntly, the way it has been run, the way it had been run, no.
Right.
Now, I know every employee thinks they know more than their boss, and I've said that to many people before. But our ownership has been well off enough and their businesses diversified and successful enough that they were willing and able to fund minor losses here at Pico Bonito in order to keep the product, the lodge, at the the high level of service that they wanted to share with their guests. The owners here were not interested in a $100 a night lodge. They wanted small luxury hotels. They wanted.
And this place makes lists of small luxury hotels of the world.
All that stuff. Top 10 eco lodges of the world. Top 10 jungle lodges. Forbes, National Geographic, Condé Nast Traveler, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Audubon Magazine, and that's what the owners wanted.
Yeah.
They liked that. You're not going to get those things with a lower end lodge, or at least not in Honduras. And so that's why they were very amenable to funding the losses. A new buyer, a buyer of this lodge, would have to do what we have tried to get the owners to do over the past almost 2 decades, and that was downsize. Strategic management of staff.
Run a tighter ship.
Yeah, you don't need to have 45 employees 365 days a year when you've got a high season and a low season. Your marketing, you need to amplify it where it's involved in where it concerns birding and conservation and the things that pay the bills.
Yeah.
And reduce it in other areas and the things that don't pay the bills. So I'm being very honest with anyone who's calling me or contacting me and telling them that is the truth. Has it been viable? No. Could it be viable? Yes. And for very obvious reasons.
And you'd be interested in being part of that potential future.
If there is a future like that, I'd be very interested.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like at this point, it's like rolling out of bed for me to know how to do things here and the right way to do them. It'd be so easy to boost occupancy here and boost revenue. And, again, I know everybody thinks they know better, but, you're talking to a person who's been involved in every single facet of this business for a very, very long time. And there's nothing new here to me.
Plus, you know how to nap Flint.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Plus, when I get frustrated, I just disappear and it runs itself. And I go make some stone tools. Yeah.
James, it's always a pleasure to see. You've always got exciting stories and intriguing things to tell, and I know everybody listening joins me in wishing you nothing but the best. You and the whole team here at Pico. I really, really hope, even maybe by the time this thing is out, there's some sort of resolution, and I can add a little addendum. So you'll have to keep us in the loop. But what a thrill it's been to be here. It's been a fantastic life experience. We had 30-some people that came here and just were blown away, every single one of them. So. Yeah. Just like thousands of people have before us, and we hope many thousands more in the future. So, thanks, James.
My pleasure, Bill. The one last thing I want to add here is that I started off talking about what an introvert I am, and if not the biggest benefit of working at this lodge and being a presence at this lodge and in Honduras has been the people I have met here. Bird watchers, naturalists, wildlife photographers, whether they're coming down here to find lovely cotingas or study bats or identify insects, we're talking about the best people in the world. And even the ones back in the United States or elsewhere who maybe even don't travel, but do those things on their own turf. Shining examples of what humanity can be. Shining examples of people, just by virtue of their own little interests, making this planet a better place for everybody.
Right.
That sounds cliche, but that's what these folks are doing, and so it's been an honor. And you're a spearhead at the front of all that stuff, Bill. So thanks.
All right, James. Thank you so much, and buena suerte.
Thanks, man.
Special thanks to James Adams and to all our Honduran friends at the Lodge and Spa at Pico Bonito. If there's any further news to share about the Lodge's future, we'll do so here and elsewhere. And now, a shout out to our podcast sponsors. If you're not reading Birdwatchers Digest, you're probably suffering from birding deficit disorder. Symptoms may include not getting enough entertaining content about birds and bird watching. The cure is at birdwatchersdigest-digital.com. Carl Zeiss Sports Optics makes top-flight binoculars and scopes for birding. Join the Zeiss community of birders at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. At Red Start Birding, we look forward to changing the way you see the natural world. Visit redstartbirding.com for the best in birding optics and gear. The American Birding Expo is the world of birding in one place. Join us this fall in Oaks, Pennsylvania, and experience the birding lifestyle. birdingexpo.com. That's it for this episode, folks. Subscribe to the RSS feed if you haven't already, so you won't miss a single monthly episode. And send us your comments to editor@birdwatchersdigest.com. That's me, Bill Thompson III. And until next time, thanks a lot for listening. Tell your friends about it. I'll see you out there with the birds.